Thank you, Madam Chair, for hosting this conversation on pipeline cybersecurity, protecting critical infrastructure. Obviously, this is an issue that all of us are concerned about. We've been able to see really just a glimpse of the potential consequences. I say that as someone who hails from the state of Georgia. The Colonial Pipeline, of course, runs directly through my state. Following the ransomware attack on Colonial, over 40% of the gas stations in Georgia were out of gas. At the height of the situation, over 70% of the stations in the Atlanta area were without gas. This attack caused a lot of turmoil, to put it lightly, in Georgia and across the country. Folks couldn't go to work, small businesses suffered, families in Georgia who were already barely getting by had to deal with another crisis after a challenging year. The ransomware attack on the Colonial Pipeline had very real consequences for working families across Georgia and exposed, obviously, national security concerns, dangerous vulnerability in our critical infrastructure. Administrator Pekoski and Deputy Secretary Trottenberg, my first question is simple. What specific steps are your agencies taking right now to prevent a cyber attack like this from happening again? Administrator Pekoski.
Thank you, Senator. We've taken two very specific steps recently. We issued two security directives, which basically are regulations that are implemented in an emergency to require action on the part of private sector entities. The first security directive required reporting, required the establishment of a cybersecurity coordinator that was available 24/7, and also required private sector pipeline companies to assess their cybersecurity against the cybersecurity guidelines that we had published in coordination with them for many years. The second security directive has specific actions to ensure that the companies increase their overall cybersecurity. Those specific actions are sensitive security information, so they're not public. But the whole idea behind the second security directive is to make sure that in addition to the reporting and the coordinator and the gap analysis, that we take specific actions to prevent an attack from occurring. Additionally, the second directive requires something called an architecture design review. And the purpose of these architecture design reviews is to take a look at the IT architecture of a company and determine whether or not a business IT system might bridge into an operating technology system, which could, in the case of a pipeline, affect the flow of product through that pipeline. And so we want to just make sure that there is good separation between those two systems. Additionally, we have a requirement in the second security directives for some contingency planning on the part of pipeline companies. And when I say pipeline companies, these are the pipeline companies that are the most critical, not all pipeline companies, and the ones that account for about 85% of the product that flows in the country.
Deputy Secretary Trottenberg.
Yes, thank you, Senator. DOT through PHMSA is regularly inspecting and regulating pipeline operations around the country. We're inspecting the physical integrity of the pipelines. We're in control rooms, and so we are looking for where we see security issues and working closely with TSA and CISA on that. And I think one lesson I was mentioning to Senator Hickenlooper, as a mitigation plan, we're also making sure, as Colonial had to do quickly in the case of the cyber attack, can you manually operate your system so that you don't see the kind of disruptions that you saw on the ground in Georgia and other states if there is some kind of an attack? We're wanting to make sure that now operators have those mitigation plans in place. And as always, other parts of our agency, particularly federal motor carriers and MARAD, are working with local governments and state governments on the ground if there are cases where we see issues with fuel deliveries and shortages, making sure we can get trucks and ships delivering.
Thank you. As we focus on preventing future major cyber attacks, I think that some of the work that's happening in the state of Georgia can be helpful in these efforts. I'm particularly proud that our colleges and universities like Augusta University and Columbus State University have made the forward-thinking decision to invest in cyber education. Ms. Gordon, why is increasing the STEM and cyber education of our young people critical to addressing gaps over the long term in cyber security expertise in the TSA workforce, including TSA employees who perform cybersecurity inspections?
Senator, there is a great need to increase the cybersecurity workforce, not just in the TSA, but in other areas of the federal government. And the pipeline of educated, dedicated individuals who are willing to work in the federal service and apply their cybersecurity knowledge base is greatly needed.
Thank you all so much for those responses, and I look forward to working with my colleagues on this committee and here in the Senate to make sure that we have the kind of cybersecurity resilience necessary for this moment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Warnock.